So the goose died, and I had to process it, and I'm going to smoke it. So it's already about to get cut up into little meat pieces, but I'll just show you guys a little bit of what my setup's like for that. This knife is for processing. I only use it for processing animals. It doesn't get used for anything else. So that's just cutting it into pieces. Here's some like leftover bits. I don't know if you see that. Then here is my meat knife. And this knife is just for cutting up the meat once I have it already processed. I don't switch the two up. And then this is a knife sharpener. It's an oil sharpener, and that's for sharpening the knives. If you don't have a knife sharpener, you don't really have a knife, because you want to keep a sharp blade when you're doing it. So what I'm gonna do with this goose is I'm going to smoke it, and I'm going to cut the meat off the bones and season the meat and cold smoke it in my smoker. And then I'm gonna take the bones and I'm gonna make a broth with the bones. The smoking, I'm going to take that meat out of there and put it into cans, and then use the broth to rehydrate the meat when it's in the can. This is my smokehouse. I built it pretty recently. It's made out of redwood, and this is what it looks like in the inside. And I'll show you guys what the smoking process is like. There's some of that goose before I'm done cutting the meat off of it. And for smoke wood, I'm using this punky alder, and this is perfect for smoking. It's a little bit rotten and it's moist, makes really good smoke, and alder has really good flavor. And when you're smoking it, you want to take all the bark off of it, because that'll make it taste better. Now, I don't have a refrigerator, so I have been using a lot of canning, and not as much smoking, but smoking as well. Those are like two different ways to preserve food. And today I'm just going to be canning for food preservation. The smoking is really just for flavor. The next step is going to be dispatching this goose once the water's hot enough to pull his feathers off easily. And to dispatch it, I'm just going to shoot him in the head with a copper bullet so we don't get lead everywhere. So just about to dispatch the goose. It's right there. He's got his feet in here. He's green. So I'll just give him some of that and shoot him in the back of the head while he's eating. He won't see it coming. He won't be struggling. He won't be freaking out like you would if I grabbed it by the neck and rang it, or slit the throat or something. So the goose is dead, and after you kill it, you gotta cut the throat so blood gets out and doesn't clot inside it. This is the goose, and this is how you take the feathers off. Is you put it in hot water and you let it sit in there for a little bit, no more than 30 seconds, and I'll just let it stand there for a little bit longer, because you don't want to cook it in the hot water. And then the feathers come off easy like that, so I can just rip them out like that. That's how we get the feathers off it. All right, there's that goose skin. So I'm gonna gut this guy and clean this off, then chop it up later and get it in the smoker. We're all inside it. This is a pretty fully formed egg. It's in that sack. And then these are eggs that aren't fully formed, but you can still eat them and they taste good. So I'm gonna eat those for dinner. Okay, so it's nighttime, and it's too cold for me to keep processing this guy. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it in this water overnight. It's really cold out here, so it's basically like refrigeration. I'm gonna put some salt in it, a whole bunch of salt. And what the salt does is it sucks out a lot of the other stuff in it. So a lot of the excess blood and whatever might be in there, it'll take that away. I do that with a lot of the times I'll use salt and water and brine stuff overnight if I think it might taste gamey or something like that, because that, I don't know the science to it, but it just sucks all that out of there and makes it taste good. But tonight I'm doing it mostly for refrigeration, so the meat will be good tomorrow in the morning when I'm gonna go to smoke it. All right, so day 2, just gotta sharpen my knife, clean off the cutting board. And this is cold to the touch, like it would be if it came out of the fridge. So that's how I know it's all right. And gotta clean out that water, clean everything down, and start cutting it up. So I'm about to start up the smoker. So I'm going to make some kindling so I can like easily make a fire that I can put my smokehouse wood on. This should work pretty good for getting a fire started. All right, so I got a little fire going inside the smoker. This is my smoker, and when the fire is going pretty good, I'm gonna put this lid on it to stop the flame and turn it into coals. Because we just want coals in the smoker, we don't want flame. So you don't want to rush the smoker. You don't want to rush any of the steps. You want to get your fire going good so the coals are going good, because you don't want your coals to stop smoking while you're off doing stuff and then your meat is just hanging out without the smoke. A nice fire going, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to close it up, but I put this chunk of wood there so it can still get air. And we still got the fire going on in there. And I'm gonna let that burn till it's some really nice looking coals. Then I'll start putting some of this smoke wood on it. All right, so that's the meat from 2 geese. And I got it smoking in there with some of this alder. And it seems to be going. I'm gonna babysit it for like the next hour, make sure everything's looking good. I got my trays so I can kind of move them, and I got another little grill in there too. If I need to make some more smoke, I can set up another one. But this should be more than enough, you know. But yeah, so I decided not to season it. I'm just gonna let the alder smoke do its thing, let it taste real smoky, and can it with the broth, and then whoever's eating it can spice it with whatever they feel like spicing it with. Some water for making the bone broth. I'm going to use for canning the smoked meat. Get some water in there and some bones and some meat there too. So I'm gonna cook that in the pressure canner for quite some time until I don't feel like cooking it anymore. I got this broth just cooking on the stove top. Put this fur on there just to kind of weight it down. The fur is not in the broth and will not end up in the broth. It's just kind of keeping some weight on those bones. And I'm just gonna let that broth go until it's time to can. So just checking on the smoker. I don't know if you can tell what's going on, but there's coals in there, smoke wood, and I got the duck all up here, and the smoke from this is going up onto this, and it's making it taste good. Yep. All right, here's some smoked goose. It's been smoking for about 12 hours. Let me find a nice little piece there that you guys see. So you see it looks kind of tan. When you're smoking it, it starts turning it into jerky. But since I'm not making jerky, I just wanted to smoke it for about 12 hours. So so it still has a lot of moisture in the meat because I'm gonna go and can it, and it's gonna make it all soft and nice. But for just a 12-hour smoke, this is kind of what you want it to look like. And this all here, this smells like it smells like if you're opening up a pack of jerky, that smoky smell. Now the next step is going to be putting that goose into these mason jars. I'm going to fill them up with meat loosely to about where that 300 is. I'm not going to go all the way up on these, and just because I don't want to get a little bit more jars going, because 2 geese is not a lot of meat. And these are canning jars. If you have a garden or livestock, you should probably have some of these. They're great to have, and you can use them to store food. You can store meat for 10 to 15 years by canning it. So yep. Alright, so this is how much meat I got out of 2 geese, and it's about a pound of meat per jar. I had to go a little bit above the 300, and this is with them packed down, so they're not loosely in there. I did some pressing on them. But the next step is going to be adding in some of that goose broth and just a spoonful of salt. And then those will almost be ready to put in the canner. I put the broth, or what they call the goose juice, into these. So that's going to rehydrate the moisture that was smoked out while I was smoking it. And you're supposed to put liquids in if you've cooked the meat. So, you know, it's just what you do. And the next step is putting some salt in. Now for these jars are pint jars. This is all the salt you need. You just put a thing of salt on like that. And boom, that's gonna be good. Could I go crazy and put tons of different spices in there? Yes. Do I sometimes? Yes. Like I like canning a pork with like a barbecue dry rub on it and that kind of thing. It tastes great. But I'm not doing it this time, so whoever's eating this can add their own spices later, you know. And now here we got some cans that just have broth in them, and I'm gonna save this broth, and then the next time I'm making some soup, I'll be able to use this. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a really useful trick for canning stuff. And if you've ever had cans where the lids didn't seal and you swear you did everything right when you were doing it, this is the trick for you. So let me show you how to do it. Just get some regular old distilled white vinegar. Put some of that vinegar on a paper towel or a napkin or something. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to wipe these lids down with this vinegar. Now that our lids are clean, I'm going to start putting the lids on. When you put them on, don't tighten them all the way. How I do that is I get it tight. Then once it's tight, I back it up a little bit. So the next step is loading up the pressure canner. Put the goose in the canner. Okay, so this is a quart jar, and for that the pressure canner needs 3 quarts of water. I'll know if that 3 quarts is too much because if it's close to the lid line for the first row of cans, then I put too much water in. None of the cans should be submerged in water. Okay, I don't know if you can see how much water is in there, but it's really not a lot. And that's all we need to run this canner. The next step is just closing the canner and heating it up. For this model of pressure canner, what you want to do is you want to tighten like a car tire. So get going all around to get even pressure everywhere. You keep going until you can't do any of it anymore. So now we're heating up this pot, and then we're going to be looking for steam coming out of this. Once steam has come out of this, I'm going to put a timer on for 12 minutes. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's steaming. There's steam coming out of there. So that's how I know that it's time to wait 10 minutes or 12 minutes. And then I'm going to put this weight on there. Now this weight, it has a 10. And that is where I want to put it for my location, so it stays around the boiling temperature at sea level. Okay, so we got the weight on there now. So now this gauge, when it's up at 10, that's where I want it to be. And that's when I'll start my timer. It needs to be up there for 90 minutes. And if it goes under 10, then I have to start the whole 90 minutes over when it goes up to 10. But that's how long it needs. 90 minutes at 10, and these cans will be good to go. Okay, we made it to 10. So now I start my timer for 90 minutes, and I'm gonna watch this, and if it is getting too hot, I turn the heat down. And it shouldn't be getting too low. It's not going to go under 10, but I might have to adjust the heat a little bit so it doesn't get too hot. This is what it does when it's too hot. This thing's moving around all crazy. This is going up to 15. So I got to turn it down so that this is only jiggling maybe a couple times per minute. Okay, it's been 90 minutes, so I just turned the heat off and gonna let it cool down. Once this thing gets down to 0, I'll let it sit for like 10 to 20 minutes, then pop it open and take the cans out. And I'm not gonna touch any of them till tomorrow. I'm gonna let them cool off. Here's one of the finished products. This is a can of smoked goose and goose broth.